Watching the controls is
Huh?
watching the controls is fun.
I know, sorry. Okay, change this.
Yeah, then put it as spotlight. Spotlight. I think should be good to go.
There we go.
Okay, I think we're good. Her availabilities.
So close out the share screen. Stop sharing screen.
Thank you.
This is actually what it does.
There we go.
All right, we are on.
Are we going? Good morning, everybody, and sorry for the delay in the meeting. Technical issues, that's probably just because I'm in the room, because that's what happens. Welcome to the zoning administrator meeting of May 18th. I want to introduce myself. My name is Susie Murray, for those online who don't know me, because I think everybody in the room does. I'm a senior planner here at the City of Santa Rosa. I am also the zoning administrator. So with that, I am going to call the meeting to order. There, how's that? The first order of business is a public comment period. Public comment period is intended for items that are not listed on our agenda. Technically, they should be within the purview of the zoning administrator, but I'm willing to listen if you have something to say. Mark, is there anybody raising their hand?
If you're attending in person and wish to make a public comment, please raise your hand. Thank you. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. You may find the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 once unmuted to be called upon.
Do we see any hands raised?
Zoning Administrator Murray, I do not see any hands raised at this time.
Great. So the zoning administrator business, item 3.1 is the statement of purpose. The zoning administrator is appointed by the Director of Planning and Economic Development and has the responsibility and authority to conduct public meetings and hearings and to act on applications for minor or reduced review authority projects or entitlements, which are land use permits. A determination or decision by the zoning administrator may be appealed to the appropriate appeal body. It could be the Design Review Board, Cultural Heritage Board, Planning Commission, or City Council. Any action taken today will be, the appeal period will expire actually on Tuesday, May 30th, because we have a holiday weekend coming up. So woohoo. Anyways, I'll try and remind you as we take action today on each item. But yeah, if you can make note now that the final date to submit an appeal is May 30th. And with that, I'm going to say item 4.0 is consent items. We have none. And we have scheduled items. Oops, I want to back up to item 3.2 and get to zoning administrator reports. I would like to announce to the public a couple of things. We are currently in the process of updating our general plan. I take every opportunity I can to give a plug for that event. This is the time when you can affect land changes. So please, if you have concerns or ideas, this is the time to talk to us. So keep your eyes on outreach events. You can contact the planning email, planning@srcity.org, and ask for updates. We will forward it to the appropriate staff. So now I'm going to move on to jump ahead to item 5.0, which is our scheduled items. And the first item is a public meeting. It's a parking lot expansion, and it is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. It's minor design review for a proposal at 1405 Thunderbolt Way, city file number DR19-061. And the project planner is Suzanne Hartman.
Thank you, Zoning Administrator Murray. It'll just be one moment for me to share my screen, which I need permission for. I did raise my hand though. Perfect. All right.
Is Mike in the room?
All right. I'm presenting the proposed parking lot expansion at 1405 Thunderbolt Way, application number DR19-061.
Send him the Zoom link.
The applicant proposes a parking lot expansion with 29 proposed parking lot stalls for a project area of a little over 12,500 square feet to serve the existing VI solutions to the west of the site located at 1405 Thunderbolt Way. Sorry, I have issues
Viavi?
pronouncing Viavi. Yeah. This is the parcel location. The general plan land use designation is general industry, and the zoning district is general industrial. With other parcels, surrounding parcels, I should say, that also have a general industrial zoning designation as well as business park. And to the south of the site, you will also notice some planned development zoned residential. These are the supporting plans. We have the landscape plans shown at the top of the slide, and at the bottom is a more geographic view of the proposed parking lot expansion. These are the required design review findings for approval of the application. And these are the continued required findings, and staff were able to make the findings for all. And I did want to make a point for staff and to the zoning administrator that there was an additional condition of approval proposed for this resolution, which is incorporating the program EIR mitigation measures that are stated within the memorandum dated April 12th, 2023. This project has been found categorically exempt in that the environmental resource memorandum dated April 12th, 2023 states that the proposed project would be within the scope of the previously certified Santa Rosa General Plan 2035 and Environmental Impact Report General Plan EIR, and is consistent with the criteria listed in CEQA section 15183. Ooh, I passed that, sorry. There were no There are no unresolved issues as a result of staff review. There was one resident that reached out to me regarding just general comments. One thing that they did bring up is whether the applicant considered proposing landscaping or trees, I should say, on the south side of the parking lot. And it was determined that due to a storm drain that is on that side, it would be difficult to plant bigger trees, we should say, for that site. So that was kind of the reasoning behind that. It is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that the zoning administrator approve a minor design review permit to allow a parking lot expansion located at 1405 Thunderbolt Way. And above is my contact information if any questions arise. And we also have the applicant architect present in the room, as well as a few members of the team via Zoom, if you have any questions. Thank you.
And does the applicant team want to make a presentation?
There was no presentation provided.
Right. Any comments? No. Okay. Okay. Before you let go of that, can you back up to the landscape plan?
Mm-hmm.
So is this, so north, south, which is the south side? That's the south side.
Yeah.
Okay. So the south side is on the left side of the screen.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So I also had some questions about the landscaping. I had a similar, did we talk to our stormwater and creeks people about putting trees on that southern elevation? Because that's the creek side, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. How did we come to the determination? Because it's not just, there's a lot of room over there.
Yes. Yes, there's approximately 15 to 20 feet between the fence and the top of bank.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had a similar question, so about the landscaping, about putting trees.
let me respond with a question. Do you know what kind of fencing was proposed there, or is it just a water agency fence? I was thinking maybe that could be a buffer.
I have no idea what kind of fencing is proposed there. If it's a chain link fence,
Probably
I would
not.
never approve it. I wouldn't approve it. So if it's chain link fence and that would be something that, if it's not already there, that one's going to need to come back through the fence process unless we,
Yeah, there is a fence already there
Okay.
that the water agency installed.
Yeah. they don't have the same design standard as I do.
Perhaps an ivy on the fence can be requested?
Well, I want, who determined that the trees can't go there?
I wasn't in.
Oh,
on
this
that
was
decision.
under staff assumption that because there was a drain there, this was staff assumption that maybe that's why there were not trees proposed there.
Okay, so I'd like to explore, because I think we may be able, there may be certain types of trees that can go over there. And I think it makes sense to put that kind of a buffer.
Okay.
Just because, from across the way, I look at a parking lot from my house and it just is not ideal. But so I would like to explore that. But I have another request on the trees too. And that is, you've done proposed crepe myrtle and Chinese pistache. But where those the crepe myrtles are wonderful where they are, by the way. I will say that. I think that they'll be able to thrive given enough room and not being stuck in a 4x4 little planter strip. So they should be beautiful. But I'm wondering if we could get something more like a valley oak. The intent of the parking standard, the one tree for every 5 spaces, is really to provide shade. It's shade and cooling and what have you. And I think that putting a native tree on the valley floor makes a whole lot of sense. Is there any?
I don't see why the architect would have an issue with that, the landscape architect.
Got it. They don't need to go into the planting fingers. They're too big for those planting fingers. But as proposed, I think we could probably squeeze them in on the side and they would probably thrive. So if we can just add a condition that this speaks to that, or just adding trees, let's see, change or not consider, change the Chinese pistache to valley oak trees.
Okay.
And explore the possibility of adding trees on the southern property line adjacent to the creek.
Can we say trees or screening in case for some reason the trees don't work?
Yeah, I think so, but I want it to be, I would prefer trees. I don't think growing ivy on the fence provides an adequate screen.
Good.
I think we need something taller, which is, you can do both. I'd love to see it, but ivy is very invasive too. So that's, I have a concern about that. There may be a much more appropriate plant there.
Okay.
So, but I want to look at trees. There's room, and it may be that it goes onto the other side of the fence. That could be a possibility as well. We'll have to get property owner authorization, but just to look at screening options on the south side. So, yeah, that we do need to allow some flexibility because we don't know exactly what's going on, but that should be, provide screening on the south side of the parking lot. The planting plan should be approved by the planner. And that will give you that. There were some other things that I noticed when I was doing my review that I would like to also add in, actually do a little bit of a modification. And I've got a draft, so you don't have to take a lot of notes, but I want to talk about it here in the meeting. One of the conditions was that no permanent or no signs are approved as part of this project. That's a standard condition, but I'm going to say no permanent signs are approved as part of this project because I'm going to add in a requirement for that a sign shall be erected during periods of construction that provides the on-site general contractors or designated representatives' name, phone number, and email address. And then to tag on to that, response to all complaints shall occur within 24 hours regardless of weekends and holidays. The reason for those two conditions is that people can resolve their issues with the contractor, with the developer, and not involve the city. That's our hope. We are very crunched for time right now. So, and then there were also another batch of conditions that were referenced in the environmental analysis that weren't referenced here. So I wanted to add them in as well as conditions of approval. Compliance with all conditions of approval provided in the environmental analysis memorandum prepared by Mary Bean, First Carbon Solutions, FCS International, Inc., dated April 12th, 2023, including but not limited to those under the headings of Construction Bay Area Quality Management District, Best Management Practices, Biological Resources Best Management Practices, Nesting Birds, and California Tiger Salamander. And and then one more, gosh, where's the resolution? We have our art in public places requirement. Sign, no permit sign. The project shall comply with City Code Section 2108, development requirements relating to public art. So if it's a warehouse, I don't know that it'll be required. If it's a commercial building, it will. So you may or may not have the public art requirement. So do all of those conditions, extra conditions, are those okay?
Perfectly.
Love that. Okay, then, as conditioned,
Not allowed online
Public.
Zoom attendance.
Thank you.
The ability to do public comment.
I missed it. So I'm going to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to comment? No? No. Anybody online? Any hands raised?
If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you may find the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. If you are dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Zoning Administrator Murray, I do not see any hands raised.
Phew. Okay, then let me go back as conditioned. I'm going to go ahead and approve the project. Again, the appeal period ends on Tuesday, May 30th. So you actually get a bonus 2 days on this one. And that concludes that item. Okay, item 5.2 is another public meeting for another parking lot exemption. It is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. It requires minor design review, and the property is located at 1402 Mariner Way here in Santa Rosa, and the file number is DR19-060. And again, the project planner is Suzanne Hartman.
Thank you. Again, Zoning Administrator Murray. This is a parking lot expansion located at 1402 Mariner Way.
Can you tell?
Application number DR19-060. The applicant proposes a parking lot expansion with 27 proposed parking lot stalls for a project area of 11,724 square feet to serve the existing Viavi Solutions. I don't know why I can't get that one. To the east side of the site, located at, again, 1402 Mariner Way. This is an aerial view of the project site. As you can see, there is an existing warehouse and parking lot on the site. The general plan land use designation is general industry, and the current zoning district is general industrial. Again, the surrounding uses include general industrial, business park, residential, and open space. This is the proposed parking lot expansion site plan and landscape plan. These are the list of required findings made for determination to approve the application. And these are the required findings continued. Again, staff is going to be revising the resolution to include an additional condition of approval incorporating the program EIR mitigation measures. The environmental resource memorandum dated April 12th, 2023 states the proposed project would be within the scope of the previously certified Santa Rosa General Plan 2035 and Environmental Impact Report General Plan EIR, and is consistent with the criteria listed in CEQA section 15183.
Perfect.
There are no unresolved issues as a result of staff review. No comments were received for this site. So it is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that the zoning administrator approve a minor design review permit to allow a parking lot expansion located at 1402 Mariner Way. And my contact information is listed here. We also, again, have the
Same
applicant team in the room as well as on Zoom if any questions arise. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask again, any comments from the applicant team?
Up to date.
I have a question on that one. I didn't look as closely at the landscape plan. Is it the same trees on that one?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And then I'm going to open the public comment period. If there's anybody in the room? Nope. No comments from in the room. Are there any hands raised, Mark?
If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. You may find the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Administrator, there are no public comments at this time.
Thank you very much. So I think I've got to memorialize it for the record, but we're going to go and add the same conditions, if that's all right. So the first one will be to that the project shall comply with City Code Section 2108, development requirements relating to public art. I am going to change the, what did I do with my notes? Oh, I was finished with them. The signage, the no signs are approved. It should be no permanent signs are approved as part of the project. Signs will require separate planning and building permits. And then adding the following conditions. A sign shall be erected during periods of construction that provides on-site general contractors or designated representatives name, phone number, and email address. Another condition, a response to all complaints shall occur within 24 hours regardless of weekends and holidays. And then that long condition, compliance with all conditions of approval provided in the environmental analysis memorandum prepared by Mary Bean, First Carbon Solutions, FCS International Incorporated, dated April 12, 2023, including but not limited to those listed under the headings of construction, Bay Area, Air Quality Management District, best management practices, biological resources, best management practices, nesting birds, and California tiger salamander. And does the applicant agree to those additional conditions? Thank you very much. With that, I'm also approving that project. So thank you. All righty.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Oh, and again, the appeal period for that expires on Tuesday, May 30th. Next, we have a public meeting. This is for West Coast Self-Storage, number 2. This again is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. It's a minor conditional use permit for a project proposed at 2875 Sebastopol Road, city file number CUP 23-008. The project planner is Mike Janusek. I hope I got that right, Mike. And has Mike been elevated?
He has. He is able to cast his screen, to share his screen.
Great. Are you there, Mike? Oh, there you are, Mike.
I'm here. Thank you, Zoning Administrator Murray. So I'm just went ahead and shared my screen, and let me just dive into the presentation. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Great, thanks.
Excellent. So as referenced in the agenda title, I'll be presenting the minor conditional use permit for West Coast Self-Storage. Apologies, there is a typo on my title slide. It says design review, which is a subsequent entitlement for the same project, but the permit file number is correct. It's CP 23-003. It's at 2875 Sebastopol Road, and I'm Mike Janusek, contract planner with M Group. Project description. So the request before you this morning is for a minor conditional use permit to allow a personal storage facility that abuts a residential use for the property. The trigger is a footnote in zoning code table 2-10. And it's worded such that where a storage facility, personal storage facility abuts a parcel with a residential use. And we'll get into why that's important in the next slide or two. But it's not zoning district, it is residential use. There's also a bundled request for a parking reduction pursuant to zoning code section 2036-050 C1B. And this is more of a, to formalize the dual use of loading bays to serve as required customer parking stalls. And then, as I mentioned, there will be a subsequent design review to be heard by the design review board, and that will entail review of the architectural and landscape plans. Here's the site. It's a vacant lot at the corner of Sebastopol Road and Bertain Lane. It's approximately 1 acre, and it's surrounded by residential uses to the north and west, and light industrial uses to the east, business park uses to the south. Here's an image of the site. You can see it's vacant. There's some previous pavement areas from past development and uses of the property. and ruderal vegetation currently exists there. You can kind of see over the fence line, there's portions of residential areas beyond the fence. And here's what I was alluding to earlier. It's sort of an anomaly because the abutting parcel to the north is within the IL zone. However, you can see by the yellow shading that it is a low density residential use, and there is a single family home on that property. So the site plan, this shows the siting of the 62,000 square foot self-storage facility. Primary access to the site will be obtained by a two-way 20-foot wide driveway off of Sebastopol Road. And then there's an egress only that wraps around the building and exits on Brittain Lane. That's 16-foot wide. The setbacks, there's a 20-foot front landscaped yard for the front setback. The east is 28 feet for the side. And then there's a 10-foot west side setback. The rear setback is 20 feet. In addition to the 16-foot access road, there's a 4-foot planter strip. And it's of note that exceeds the required 10-foot rear yard setback that's required in the IL base zone, where the light industrial use abuts a residential. And then also of note, there's a required part of the specific use standards for personal storage facilities is that there's a required 20-foot landscape front yard. So that's been met. And I'll jump into the parking in the landscape slide because there's some legibility issues. I think there's some extra line work that's sort of confusing the parking plan on this. So I'll clarify that in a moment. Here are the architectural elevations. This is the south, the front, and the east side. These will be subject to review by DRB. Here's the west side and the north side. Of note, the north side abuts the residential use to the rear, and staff has worked with the applicant to provide some additional architectural interest in the form of additional siding panels that add color and change material to enhance the aesthetics facing the residents. Here's the landscape plan. The parking is shown when you take away all the civil line work, the parking is more clear, and that 7 spaces will be provided. There are three that are not gated and will serve the office use, the ancillary office. And then there are 3 loading bays that are sort of oversized parking stalls that will be customer serving for folks with vans and small trucks to access the storage units. And that's behind a rolling gate. So it's gated access. And then there's also, it's not shown here, but there's an additional 7th parallel space here as the one-way wraps around the rear of the building. And so they have 7, but the 3 loading bays, we've formalized that into a parking reduction request, which I'll get to more in the findings. Also noted on the landscape plan, there's a row of evergreen trees that are spaced at 10-foot intervals that'll provide a site obscuring screen for the residents to the north. Here's a 3D perspective of that, the screening and sort of that buffer and that area. You can see it well in the oblique image. So there would be a wood fence, site obscuring fence, 7 feet tall, with the evergreen hedge of Italian buckthorn is selected, which is fast growing, will fill in quickly, and will reach a mature height of approximately 10 to 12 feet. And then you can see there's the access drive there. A photometric plan was also submitted for staff review as part of the design review, and staff has confirmed that no spillover would occur into adjacent properties. No public comments were received as part of the noticing period, and staff is able to make all the required findings. I won't go into great depth because I try to integrate it into the presentation, but in summary, the project meets all the specific use standard for personal storage facilities pursuant to section 2042-180, including setbacks and landscape buffers. In addition, the project complies with lighting standards of section 2030-080 and all other applicable zoning regulations. The scale of the self-storage facility is compatible with that of existing structures by exceeding the required rear yard setback and providing enhanced screening and additional architectural details on the rear facade. Hours will be limited to 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. for the office and 7 to 7 for the storage units. And lastly, granting the permit would not constitute a nuisance or be injurious or detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, welfare, or materially injurious to persons, property, or improvements in the vicinity and zoning district, in that the area is designated for light industrial and commercial uses and is surrounded to the east and south by similar commercial and industrial uses. And then I also want to add to that, and I've noted this will be added to the draft resolution that was in the packet, but there will be 2 additional findings pursuant to section 2036-050 C1B that'll formalize the parking reduction request. And that's because there are special circumstances associated with the operations, such as short drop-off times, a widely distributed parking demand, established parking demand at other locations for the business, and separate parking areas for office visitors and gated access for the storage units. That the use of these small loading bays for customer service, for customer parking stalls that are required will sufficiently meet the zoning code minimum parking requirement in table 3.4, which is 5 are required for customers, and there's 7 provided, including the 3 loading stalls. And so therefore the number of spaces are sufficient for the safe, convenient, and efficient operation of the use. CEQA, an infill exemption. The project is eligible for an infill exemption. Self-storage use isn't allowed use within the zoning district with the minor conditional use permit on this particular parcel. Project is only 1 acre, and there's no habitat value for endangered, rare, or threatened species as documented in a bioassessment prepared for the project. There will not be a significant impact in terms of traffic noise, air quality, or water quality. There's also a traffic study prepared for the project with the DR application. And the site can be served by all utilities and services. So with that, Planning and Economic Development Department recommends the zoning administrator by resolution approve a minor conditional use permit to allow a personal storage facility abutting residential use for the property at 2875 Sevastopol Road. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant has representatives available as well. Thank you.
Great. Would the applicant like to make a presentation? Do you know, Mike?
I don't think they have slides prepared, but I think they might want to follow up on my presentation, or certainly would be available to answer any questions.
Perfect. Are there any, if the applicant team is joining via Zoom, if you want to make any comment now, go ahead and raise your hand.
We have Steve Tangi available to speak.
Yes, good morning. This is Steve. I'm the applicant and developer for a representative of West Coast Self Storage. I don't have any significant information to add to Mike's presentation. I thought it was thorough and complete. We manage about 113 self-storage facilities from Canada to Mexico on the West Coast, and I'm fairly experienced at this point. And this is a good project for us as designed, and we're happy to move forward with it.
Great, thank you. I'd like to open up the public comment period too. If there's anybody in the room, nobody in the room that wants to comment? Are there any members of the public that are remote?
If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. You may find the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. If you are dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Seeing no hands raised, Zoning Administrator Murray, there are no comments.
Okay, and I actually have some. I want to say first, thank you for clarifying, Mike, the parking, the extra lines on the civil plan. I couldn't figure out why they needed a parking reduction because it looked like they had an abundance of it. Anyways, and I want to thank you too for adding in or memorializing a parking reduction, although as I think that they are overparked with even though they have trailer parking, but I appreciate the conservative approach to be really for sure on that. I have a comment or a question on the egress onto Britain Lane. Is that for anybody delivering or accessing their units, or is that an emergency only?
Looks like Steve is available. My understanding from what's called out on the plan set is that it's for anyone to exit, and there's actually the fire emergency lane is actually not intended to wrap around. It's been reviewed by fire, and they would pull in and also pull out of the driveway off of Sebastopol.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm concerned. I know that these types of uses don't generate very much traffic. Just when, at the time when they start occupying the building, I think it would make sense to notify neighbors that there's going to be additional traffic on Britain because that's just the nature of the beast. I'm not sure how many units are involved in here, but my guess is they'll fill up quickly and it'll be relatively painless afterwards. But maybe if we can add a condition that just says to notice the neighbors on Britain Lane when the business is opening, so they can be alerted that there may be some more traffic congestion on Britain during a short period of time while the units are becoming occupied. I also have an additional question about trees off-site. There is that residential property to the north. It looked like there was a tree right in the southeast corner of their property. I can't tell from the aerial what it was. I have done site visits, but I didn't look at the trees when I was there. So I don't know what kind of tree that is. But regardless, whether it's whatever tree, if it's on a neighboring property, I want to apply some protective measures to that. So when grading begins, that tree doesn't get harmed, especially if it belongs to somebody else. So we can go ahead and add kind of the standard tree protective measures, and we can list them. They're on most of our resolutions, our design review resolutions. So you may be able to capture that then, Mike, but I want to make sure that tree gets protected.
Yeah, that's a good comment. We do have draft conditions of approval related to both tree protection / preservation and also tree replacement. for the off-site tree, I just want to make sure I'm understanding precisely which tree you're talking about. Do you mind if I share
No, not
a
at all.
plan and sort of point it out?
It might show better on an aerial view if you can bring up the
Okay.
aerial view.
Okay, let me try.
And oh, okay. And Steve, I know you've got your hand raised. You can go ahead and give him permissions to speak.
Yeah, Steve, you may unmute yourself currently. Go ahead.
Am I unmuted?
Yes,
You are.
Go ahead.
Okay. While Mike's bringing up that screen, both those conditions are fine. All of the trees that are on the property are slated to be removed, but we would protect, and that's a reasonable comment, to protect any that are near the property line but off-site. And we would engage an arborist for that to advise us.
Perfect. You just wrote the condition. And we'll just go ahead after Mike. Okay,
Can you see the aerial now?
I can.
Okay.
I can. So can you so Britain Lane, if you move up to the north, yeah, the southeast corner of the project or the residential use to the north.
Mhm.
Yeah, right in there, right in that area, there is that big tree. And I just want to make sure that I was looking at that tree, but in this aerial view, I see other trees as well. If they're off-site, I'm fully aware that anything on-site will be demolished and replaced. But anything off-site should be protected and not harmed. So some of the, basically, it's within the drip line of the tree. There's no storage, there's no digging, there's no grading. If there is digging, then it should be done under an arborist supervision and protective measures, using a sharp knife to cut inches or cut roots that are more than an inch in diameter, using fungicide. There's a pretty standard set. So consult an arborist for those protective measures and we'll be good. Mike, I'll leave it in your very capable hands to go ahead and draft a condition. I wouldn't get too elaborate, just basically deferred to an arborist.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and I probably will extend that to all off-site trees that could potentially be impacted based on the size of the canopy and restructure and whatnot. But I believe you're referencing this tree. This tree is actually on site and proposed for removal, even though it's kind of unclear. Some of the canopy goes across the property line. So I think we would be targeting this one specifically.
Yes, that was the one that I was referring to. And as far as tree replacement, landscape plan and building materials, I will absolutely defer to the design review board. I'm thrilled that this project is going to them. But I will say, being a planner and having processed several self-storage facility design review and use permits projects, I will say that it's not uncommon that we have people come back and kind of value engineer, switch up their plans because it becomes very expensive to build these very attractive, very attractive facilities. I appreciate it. It's very nice looking. I appreciate that very much. And it sounds like you have plenty of experience, Steve. So that's you can do that. But I encourage you to look and make sure you're not going to want to come back in and change materials out because it's not feasible to build it as designed. So before the design review board weighs in on it. And that's not a condition of approval, that's just a comment. So the other thing that I would like to do, I do have a couple of conditions that I would like to add in. And Mike, I've drafted these conditions so I can give you a hard copy of it after the meeting, so you don't have to take dictation. But there's one edit to an existing condition that Mike has, and that is no exterior signs are approved with this permit. I want to say no permanent exterior signs are approved with this permit. And I know I sound like a broken record player. I apologize for that, but I'm going to request that Two conditions be added, and that is during periods of construction, a sign shall be posted along Sebastopol Road frontage that provides contact information for on-site general contractor or designated representative, including name, phone number, and email address. And another condition that says that all complaints shall be responded to within 24 hours, regardless of weekends or holidays. And the reason I am adding that is because I want to be, I want to try to keep the city out of complaints. And if by posting this information, people can contact you and they get a quick response, it'll save us all a lot of grief. And then, and that's it on my conditions of approval. Steve, are those okay with you?
Yeah, they're fine. And that's pretty typical anyway.
Yeah.
We would post the contact information for the general contractor and ourselves on the site.
Thank you I appreciate that. Not everybody does. I wish they did. And then I need a refresher. Mark, did I open the public comment period?
You did. There were no comments except Steve, who my understanding is the applicant. So
Got it. And I don't know that I ever closed the public comment period, so I am going to close that now. I'll get this down one of these days. So with that, as conditioned, I am going to approve this project. And thank you, Mike, again, for clarifying the parking issue. I did have a question. And congratulations on one step closer to building your storage unit, Steve. Thank you for coming to the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, and moving on to our last item. 2, 3, 4. Item 5.4 is a public meeting for the Boys and Girls Club parking lot improvements and modifications. And this project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. It requires minor design review. The project site is located at 1011 Hammond Drive. And the city file number is DR 22-014. The project planner is Jandon Briscoe. Jandon?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Madam Zoning Administrator Murray. Let me share my screen real quick. Today, I'm bringing forward to you the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Santa Rosa. It's a remodel located at 1011 Hammond Drive. The applicant is proposing an interior and exterior remodel of an existing one-story building. The modifications include alteration of the parking lot to enhance vehicular circulation, installing accessible parking stalls, and accessible path to building entries. Also want to note that they will be adding bicycle parking as well. The exterior modifications also include new windows on the east front elevation, the east, north, south, and west elevation, and modifying the roof to add a 680 square feet vaulted ceiling with clever story lighting at the building entry. Here is the project location. You can see it's at the corner of Patio Court and Hammond Drive. And this is the neighborhood context map in which you can see that it's surrounded by residential uses to the east and to the west. And you can also see that Montgomery Village is directly to the north of it. And here's the general plan and zoning, in which the general plan is retail and business services, and the zoning is general commercial. And I also want to note that meeting facilities are a permitted use within the general commercial zoning designation. And staff was required to find these 6 findings, and we were able to find all of these findings. And I just want to note that the design is appropriate for the use and location, and that the proposed modifications and siding will harmonize with the residential uses and church to the east of the property. And the design and layout of the proposed development will not interfere with the use and enjoyment of neighboring existing or future developments. and that the new parking lot is designed to mitigate traffic on Hyman Drive, and the new design has a trash enclosure, helping with the cleanliness of the overall area. And these are the findings continue. And as the zoning administrator stated previously, this project has been found in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, and that it is categorically exempt from CEQA because it involves minor modifications to an existing facility. And there has been no comments from the public received so far. And this is the site plan in which you can see that the vaulted ceiling can be seen from the east, the west, and the north elevations. And to the right, you can see the new redesigned parking lot with ADA accessibility, ADA parking stalls, and compact cars parking. And they also have some nice landscaping on the outside of it as well. Thus, it is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that the zoning administrator approve a minor design review permit to allow the proposed exterior and interior modification located at 1011 Hyman Drive. And this is my contact information if you have any questions. And the applicant is here if anyone has questions for her. This is Mrs. Anderson.
Finally, I know why you're here. Would you like to add anything to the presentation?
I know there was a transition and Jandon took over from Sheila Wolski.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a transition also from the original designer, Warren Hedgepeth. And so I think there's a little bit of miscommunication. The board of the Boys and Girls Club informed me last year that there were no funds allocated to change the parking. The parking lot was repaved the year before last, and that was supposed to be a long-term fix. And I think what I've seen, having been there prior to that improvement that they made 2 years ago, is that they have better parking facilities for their buses that bring in the kids, and drop off is a little safer, but they do not have the funds right now to do the site plan that when I took over from Warren, I put in place, just charging ahead, thinking I needed to provide that. But so I want to just, I think I clarified that to Sheila, and I think in the transition, it just didn't get over to you, Jen, that I had submitted a new site plan and said no improvements to the outside. That was generated really because engineering's comments to our minor design review application were created, you know, with engineering's review, it opened up kind of a hornet's nest of very costly improvements that would be required to the sidewalks and the whole parking area, and it's just not feasible. We want the kids to be comfortable this summer. It was terrible last summer when we had that heat wave and it had no air conditioning.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm just trying to help them out. I have a full set of construction documents ready to put into the building department. If we could iron out some of these miscommunications, maybe concurrent with my submitting the plans to the building department, that would be really helpful.
So can I ask if the proposal that you've made for the building that we looked at, is that still the same?
Yes. It's
Okay, so the design review it wouldn't be the first time that we've seen part of the improvements happen,
Yeah.
the changes happen, and not all of them. I understand that hornet's nest, we've seen it a lot of times. So construction is expensive, it's getting more expensive, and then we have stormwater issues right now.
Right.
So we've got competing goals. So I think, you know, by approving the whole project doesn't mean you have to construct the whole project, but the option will be there within, you know, a given period of time. But technically, I think it's my understanding, and you would want to verify this, but if you construct the building improvements and in 4 years, all of a sudden there's money for those parking lot
Yes.
improvements and they decide you've got a vested design review because you've done half of it. So
Yes.
I think you'd probably be safe to go. Although you would be required to comply with current standards, and my guess is they'll just continue to get more restrictive, hopefully less expensive, but.
Gabe Osborne and Jesus did make an agreement, and BKF engineers really helped us with this, to allow the Boys and Girls Club for the exterior improvements, to not touch the parking lot, but the Boys and Girls Club will greatly mitigate pedestrian traffic hazard by replacing the patches on the sidewalk that they've done with new paved pieces of sidewalk that smooth that all out. So
And is that in the conditions of approval, do we know?
I saw it in, when we worked with Sheila, she sent out the plans to the departments. And I saw a letter to that effect come in from engineering. I can't recall where that is in the record right now. I know I saw something
Okay.
conclusive.
But I'm going to ask that we take about a 5-minute break, and it's a bio break and a research break. But I'd like to take 5 and just find that memo if we can. So, Mark, I'm testing your.
Excuse me, sorry.
And I did resubmit the cover sheet and the site plan, and somehow that has just not made it to this hearing, but I did resubmit a site plan where the parking lot was not changed. Jesus also at that time asked me to clarify some of the area calculations I did. So some of those numbers were changed from the original submittal.
I suspect that these are the older ones.
We submitted last year, and all of these documents and all this discussion happened early this year, between January and March, I'd say.
Recesses. When you would like to officially recess, I can do that now.
Okay, let's go ahead and officially recess
All right.
for 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay.
Maybe a short point.
I would We're back. Thank you, everybody. Whoops. But we've endured a couple of transitions, pretty big transitions since this project began. So I think at this point, it would make sense to go ahead and continue.
Closing the comments.
Oh, I need to close the public comment period. Thank you. I'll get this down. But I'm going to go ahead and continue the item. So there will actually be another option for another, another date that you can comment on it if you're listening. And we're going to continue it to a date certain, which is June 1st, 2023. And it will not require additional noticing. So if you're here today, come on back and join us on June 1st. If you need the contact information, or the access information will be posted on the agenda, or you can contact the project planner, Jandon Briscoe. And thank you for attending the zoning administrator meeting of May 18th. And I'm going to adjourn it at 11:49 on May 18th. Gavel down. Thank you.